Order up! Welcome to a brand new episode of the Order Up Podcast. Of course, I'm Taryn Williams. And so for this episode of the podcast, it's actually going to be a couple of episodes. Honestly, my brother gave me this idea a couple of weeks ago, and he was just saying, like, hey, you should talk about how to survive in the food industry, kind of how to survive, thrive, succeed, be successful, deal with the hours, deal with some of the stress, deal with some of the anxiety that comes with it. And maybe you should do a couple of podcast episodes about that. And I was like, you know what? That's actually a really good idea. So I wanted to get through some other ideas that I have in the previous episodes before I talked about this, because this might end up being, 2, 3, maybe 4 episodes, depending on how long I feel like talking about it. And so this is going to be part one of this little mini series within Order of Podcast. And to kind of start off, there's a couple of things there's a couple of levels to the food industry I do want to talk about. But before I get into all of that, there's a couple of things that are very important. And the number one thing is it has to be something that you're passionate about. And the reason why I say that, because the food industry, well, the hospitality industry as a whole, when we get down to the food industry, is like the highest turnover industry in the world. Like, if you notice, if you walk down the street, there's probably a restaurant around you that's probably hiring, because there's always a lot of turnover. Restaurants are very easy to get into, so you get a lot of maybe kids like from their college breaks, or maybe for high school summer breaks and things like that. They have to go back to school. You have kids that maybe just there's kind of like a stopgap in between where they want to be. They just need a little money for here right now, and they leave. It might be something that they're passionate about. Maybe they just need some money to pay the bills real quick so they can pursue their real career. Things like that. So it's a high turnover rate, and it's something that you have to deal with, especially if you work in the food industry, because you probably won't see you probably won't see the same people for a very long time. Maybe a few months, maybe a couple of weeks. Just depends on their situation. But it's a revolving door, and it's one of the biggest revolving doors in any business, just because of that simple fact that the turnover rate is so high. But it's something that you have to be passionate about, and I say that because working with food it's the take two. It isn't easy at times, especially when you deal with people. You have to deal with orders and inventory and all this stuff. There's a lot of things that come with it. You can have like surprise groups and people, like you use a bunch of people right before closing. There's a lot of things to handle, and there's a very high mental aspect to working in food that a lot of people I don't think talk about. That you have to be mentally tough. You have to be just as mentally tough as you are with your food skills, with your nice skills, how you cook, how you prep, and all these things, your cleanliness. You have to be mentally prepared for any given shift. And I don't think a lot of people are prepared for it. And I think that's why, especially with a lot of younger kids, when they get like a big rush, they're like, F this, I'm gone. And then they kind of quit. And because they're not mentally prepared for what they're getting into. For me personally, I've been probably mentally preparing my whole life for this. Being working in restaurants, owning my own restaurant eventually is something that I've personally wanted since I was about 12 years old. So I'm 28 currently at the time of this podcast. So that's 16 years of kind of me mentally preparing for where I want to get to. And that's just me, that's just me personally. But the passion has to be there. But before we kind of get into a lot of the grind of the food restaurant industry, you got to get in the door. And I think this episode is really going to be dedicated to getting in the door. Because a lot of people are like, oh, it's easy to get in restaurants. And get in restaurants easy. Yeah. Certain restaurants, definitely, because they're always hiring. They always need bodies. But when you go slightly up a level in restaurants, it's a hell of a lot harder. I remember getting out of college. I graduated December 2013. So in 2014, I took maybe a couple of months to kind of relax and just kind of decompress from college. And then eventually I was like, okay, let me get my resume straight. Let me just kind of put myself out there into the world and see what we get. And for me personally, I didn't have any professional cooking skills. Like, I cooked at home, and I'm a home chef, if you will, but I had no industry skills, nothing, like no real world. You got 5 tickets, line out the door, you're probably gonna get backed up, just none of that real world experience. So it was hard for me to get a line job, like a kitchen as a line cook, or even just a prep cook. And one of the beginnings is kind of, you have to pick where you're gonna start. For me personally, I couldn't be a dishwasher. That's just me right out the gate. I could not just be a delegated dishwasher. I don't mind doing dishes as part of my, it's part of my work. It's part of my shift where, you get some downtime, knock out a couple of dishes, get back to what you're doing. I just couldn't do it. And I remember I was talking to one of my mom's friends. He was saying like, oh, you get into like, a top flight restaurant, you be a dishwasher, you look at like, you kind of look at what they're doing. You go, we take out the garbage, look at the garbage, see what ingredients they're using, and this and that and the third. And that's cool if that's the approach you want to take. But for me personally, I mentally was like, fuck that. you know, that's not me. That's not the path I wanted to take. It's not the path I even envisioned for myself. I don't mind washing dishes at all, but being just a strict dishwasher, dishwashers get paid really good money. Like, I'm not knocking dishwashers at all because you get paid a hell of a lot just to do dishes. But I was like, that's not for me. Like, I knew like prep cook is where I wanted to start because that would be the ultimate kind of beginning for me. And I remember, and it just took a while. I remember I applied for a couple of like assistant manager positions. Like, I remember I applied for a floor manager at Uncle Julio's, another like F&B assistant manager at this other like fast casual Chinese spot. I can't think of the name of it right now. But like, I remember I applied a couple of places. I applied for a couple of manager positions just to see what could I get. If I could at least do the process, at least put your name out there. But I remember when I did Uncle Julio's, even though I was applying for like the floor be front of the house, but I wanted to get in the kitchen. Like, it was where my heart is. Like, my heart's always been in the kitchen. Yeah, I remember even during my interview, I was like, hey, would I be able to rotate into the kitchen? And they were like, yeah, probably eventually, keep it, keep an eye open, things like that. So I'm like, cool. But, I remember going through the process. And it took a while. Like, it took a little while. And I remember I went and I applied at Freshie. Freshie was my first job out of college. And I applied there and I got it. And I'm like, you know what? I forget how much I was paying off the bat. I think I was only getting like 9.25, I think, or something. And I wasn't getting a whole lot in 2014 out of college. It was like nine. I think it was $9 an hour or 9.25 an hour or something like that. Excuse me. And I was like, hell, I'll take it, because fresh out of college, needed a job, I had to start paying back my tuition eventually, want to help my mom out with some stuff around the house, buy stuff for myself. So I'm like, you know what? I just need to get in the door. I was like, F it. I'll just take it, get in the door, and we'll grind from there. And because also for me, one thing I thought I was gonna go to culinary school after college, which is also another option. Like, is culinary school. Culinary school is also a great path if you kind of want that. But culinary school can be expensive, especially here in Chicago. So keep that into mind. But because I already had my bachelor's, I was already paying that off. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna just cook my way through. I'm not gonna go to culinary school. I'm just gonna learn on the fly, work, make money, and just kind of learn from there. And then that's kind of where I've been at ever since. But yeah, like culinary school can be a great place to get into the door because you have all your professors. There's like job posting boards, things like that. There's alumni from your culinary program, probably somewhere out throughout the country. You maybe have a connect there. There's a networking aspect. So culinary school is a great option if you can afford it and you kind of have that leeway to do so. But yeah, like the grind to get into it's not as easy as people say it is. It's not as glamorous as people say it is either. And that's why I say that passion comes into play because getting your foot in the door is like the first step in opening your eyes to kind of everything, and then it's just kind of, and getting your foot in the door also leads into my next point where you're going to probably have a shitty schedule. Like, I think shitty schedules are part of the grind of the food industry, especially in the beginning, especially when you have no type of seniority, you're the new person, you kind of pick your schedule, but your times might be off. And for me personally, I was pretty open whenever. And Freshie was legit open 7 days a week. So it was like, I liked having Sundays off so I can go to church. But I was like, hey, like if I had to come in on Sunday, it wouldn't be a big of a deal. Plus, we close early on Sundays, so definitely be prepared for shitty schedules. Like, that's something I think everyone, like, especially when you start out, you're gonna have a shitty schedule. You're gonna have a schedule that a lot of people don't want to work because you're the new person. You haven't earned anything yet, so you're gonna get that schedule, and you just kind of have to balance your life with that. I was off middle of the week a lot of times. I was, just kind of doing that. I became like the closer on Sundays when I was at Freshie and helping out with that stuff. So like, and I think the food industry, the grind is you won't be off when your friends are off, unless your friends are in the food industry with you and then they understand it. But if a lot of your friends have normal 9 to 5 jobs, Monday through Friday, you're not gonna be off You're not gonna be off Saturday and Sundays that often. So you should keep that in mind. The back, unless the place you work is legit open Monday through Friday and they're closed on the weekend. Some places are. It's very rare, But there are some places that do that, but just be prepared to be off on like Tuesdays and Wednesdays, Wednesdays and Thursdays. You know, your guys, oh, hey, you want to kick it? And you like, shit, I gotta go in tonight. And like, fuck, for real, when are you off? Thursday? Like, bro, we not off on Thursday. I know, but I am. I think that's the early part of the grind too that a lot of people don't take into account is this kind of your work-life balance will be off, especially in the beginning, especially because you have no idea how to handle it because you're probably not used to being off on like a Wednesday and a Thursday. You know, and that's part of the early grind. That's part of kind of getting your foot in the door is taking those weird days and making it happen, you know. And you know, and it is a struggle in the early part. Like it's something you have to get used to. But if you stay with it, not just within the job longer, but as you work more, you kind of start to get your footing. You start to know, okay, I don't like, you know, I like having Tuesdays and Wednesdays off. Maybe those days just work really good for you in terms of like maybe some like chores you have to do, appointments you have to make. You're like, you know what, Tuesday and Wednesdays are a really good day for me. And you go into your next job like, hey, can I get Tuesdays and Wednesdays off? And they'll be like, oh hell yeah, you can get Tuesdays and Wednesdays off. You know, those are the days no one really wants off. If you need them, like you know, you start earning, you start seeing what you like, and you start kind of making that happen for you in terms of your own schedule and things like that. Because in the beginning, you have no idea what days you like working, what days you like off, and you're just trying to figure it out as you know a food service employee. You're trying to figure it out, and then when you get there, it's very it's very can't think of the word liberating. There we go. It's very liberating. The kind we know what you like and how you want to approach it and things like that. So this is going to be part one of my food service grind mini series within Oreo Podcast. Thank you for checking out the podcast. Greatly appreciate it. I'm trying to expand the podcast even more in 2020. Thank you so much for checking it out. Of course, check out the website, www.SlicingDicingGaming.com for all things Digital Chef, merch, other videos, the food gallery, the pantry, which is my food blog, which I kind of want to get back into a little bit more in 2020. We'll see what that happens. And of course, you can always check out the YouTube channel, Slicing Dicing Gaming Entertainment, for all the good stuff over there. The menu, season 1, 2, and 3, side dish, the lab. Of course, Oreo Podcast is over on YouTube as well. I got some other stuff on the YouTube channel. Thank you so much for supporting everything Digital Chef related. I greatly appreciate it. We're going bigger, better, and we're going harder in 2020. And always and forever, slicing, dicing, gaming. Not just a motto, it's a lifestyle. I'll see you in the next podcast. Later.